Long drives at night can feel peaceful, until you realize you're not as alone on the road as you thought. Story 1. Midnight Mile. I shouldn't have taken the back road, but the GPS had flickered out just as the sun slipped behind the pines, and the interstate had turned into a snarled line of traffic that refused to move. I slammed the handbrake, rolled down the window, and let the cool night air swallow the car's stale heat. The highway stretched ahead like a black ribbon, flanked by endless fields of dead corn that whispered in the wind. A mile later, the headlights ahead dimmed and vanished. I slowed, feeling the uneasy thump of my own heart in my throat. The road was completely empty. No trucks, no streetlights, just a thin strip of asphalt cutting through the darkness. I turned the radio off. The static was the only sound besides the low growl of the engine. Then I saw her. A woman in a tattered white dress stood at the side of the road, her back turned to me, arms outstretched as if she were waiting for a train that never came. The moon caught the edge of a cracked silver necklace around her neck, and the light seemed to scrape the emptiness of her eyes. Instinct told me to keep driving, but the sight of her, so still, so solemn, pinched the breath from my lungs. I eased the car toward her, the tires sighing over the gravel shoulder. As I drew closer, the wind shifted and a low, guttural whine rose from the road behind me, like a train's distant horn. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. She didn't move. When I rolled down the window, a cold wind slapped my face, and she whispered, "You're late." My throat caught on a gasp. "What?" I began, but the words dissolved into the night. The radio crackled to life for a moment, a faint broadcast of a news bulletin. Unknown bodies found along Highway 9. Authorities advise travelers to avoid the stretch after midnight. The voice faded, leaving only the hum of the engine. I slammed the car into gear and ripped away, the woman's silhouette shrinking behind me. The road's darkness seemed to close in, the trees leaning like gaunt fingers. A pair of red taillights appeared in my rearview mirror, mirroring my own. The vehicle behind me was an old sedan, its paint peeled, windows frosted with a thin film of ice despite the mild night. I tried to ignore it, but the sedan kept its distance, never overtaking, never falling behind. Its driver was a man with a wide-brimmed hat, his face hidden in the shadows of the vehicle. The headlights were off, but the outline of his hand rested on the steering wheel as if he were feeling for something unseen. Every mile, the sedan matched my pace perfectly, a silent shadow that refused to break. I took the next exit, hoping the pavement would lead me to a town, to lights, to safety. The road narrowed further, the asphalt cracked like old skin. The sedan followed, its engine a muted growl that echoed the guttural whine I'd heard earlier. When I finally reached the rusted gate of an abandoned gas station, the sedan stopped a few feet behind me, its engine stalling as if sighing. I stepped out, the cold biting my skin, and turned to look at the woman's white dress drifting in the wind, still standing at the dead end of the road, her necklace glinting like a broken promise. She lifted her head, and for a split second I saw her face, not human, but a hollow mask of ash and sorrow. "You'll never leave," she breathed. The sedan's driver tilted his hat, revealing an empty void where his eyes should have been. The darkness pressed in, the highway swallowing any hope of escape. I turned back to my car, the door locked, the engine dead. Behind me, the sedan's back bumper cracked, and the vehicle melted into the night, leaving only a single, fresh tire imprint that led straight into the cornfield, as if the road itself had devoured it. I was alone on an endless stretch, the hitchhiker's whisper echoing in my ears. Welcome home. Story 2. The Mile Zero Stretch. I never liked the notion of the open road the way other people did. To me, a highway was a thin vein of asphalt that could bleed you dry if you let it run too long. That night, after a busted engine forced my rental to pull off at Mile Zero on State Route 13, I found myself staring at a stretch of black ribbon that seemed to swallow the moon. The sky was a bruised violet, the air thin with the scent of pine and something metallic, like blood, But I told myself it was just rust from the abandoned cars that lined the median. My phone flickered, then died. I was alone with the hum of my own breathing and the low grumble of a distant storm. A single orange light blinked far ahead, a warning sign for a bridge that had long since been condemned. The road narrowed, the guardrails rusted away, and the radio crackled one last static-filled song before it fell silent. I pushed the car forward, the tires whining over the cracked surface, the headlights throwing grotesque shadows on the gravel. It was then I saw her. At the side of the road, on the far shoulder, a woman in a tattered white dress stood with her back to the darkness, her hair dripping with rain. The dress was soaked, clinging to her as if it were alive, and her arms were raised, palms turned upwards, as if pleading for a ride. My instincts screamed to drive past, but something, a twisted curiosity, a desperate need to prove I wasn't afraid, made me pull over. She didn't speak. When I opened the door, a cold gust rushed in, carrying the scent of damp earth and rot. I rolled down the window just enough to ask, "Where are you headed?" Her eyes, black hollows that seemed to swallow the light, met mine. "Just a little farther," she whispered, her voice a scrape of wind across dead leaves. She slid into the passenger seat, and as she did, the seatbelt snapped shut on its own, clanking like a metal bite. The engine sputtered, but the car moved, as if pulled by a hidden force. The road stretched ahead, the trees on either side forming a tunnel of skeletal branches that scraped the windows. I glanced at my passenger. The woman's face was now completely blank, smooth as porcelain, no features, just a smooth surface that reflected the road like a mirror. A sudden thud echoed behind us. I glanced into the rearview mirror and saw a pair of headlights, one set of dim, flickering bulbs, just a few car lengths back, matching our speed. The other car was an old sedan, its paint peeled, windows blackened by years of grime. It followed us silently, its own headlights dying intermittently, as if the darkness itself were breathing through them. "My name is—" I started, but the woman's hollow stare cut me off. The sedan's headlights flared, blinding, then went out. In the brief darkness, the road seemed to fold, the asphalt rising like a wave, swallowing the car whole. When the lights returned, the sedan was gone. The woman's face had changed again. Now a thin, gaunt smile crept across her featureless facade, and a single, jagged tooth bared itself. "You're not the first to pick me up," she hissed. "They never make it past mile 7. I slammed the brakes, the car skidding onto the shoulder. The engine died, and the world fell silent except for the rain tapping against the roof. I turned to the passenger seat, empty. The seat belt dangled, still clutched by invisible hands. The road ahead stretched, endless, but the mile 0 sign was gone. In its place, a rusted hand, half buried in the gravel, pointed toward the darkness, its fingers curled like a warning. I sat there, heart pounding, the rain soaking through the seat, and realized the highway had become a loop. Every turn I made led me back to that same stretch, the same phantom, the same relentless, unseen car chasing from behind. The storm finally broke, lightning flashing across the sky, illuminating the road for a split second. In that flash, I saw the truth. The hitchhiker was not a woman at all, but the road itself. Its grief, its hunger, pulling travelers into its endless, indifferent maw. And as the thunder rolled, the car's radio sputtered back to life, a single static-filled voice whispering, "Next stop, mile 7.